Okay, guys, thanks so much for being here today. I know that each one of us are probably in awe of things that have been created and what's being used these days, the technology and all the things that goes on. And it takes me back to in the beginning, because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Nothing was made without him that has already been made. In him is life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light that shines in darkness, and darkness has not overcome it. That's 1 John, beginning in verse 1. That's John 1, beginning in verse 1. And it is the beginning. If we take and understand that in the beginning was the Word, and we have that Word today in all things. So I have been, this has been a very special week, and it is still a special week. On Saturday, my daughter is getting married.
Awesome. Oh, wow.
So I have got, I'm torn between being very careful not to upset her, because the least word, they'll read into things that we just don't. And in offending people, just out, there's a word in Colossians in chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. It says, "Be wise in the ways you act toward outsiders." It says, "With every opportunity, let your conversation be first full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may have an answer for everyone." And in what I'm dealing with right now, just with my daughter, has been, especially with text messaging and things like that. It's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, oh boy, what did I just start? Then there's question mark, and it's like you have to answer right away. And then it's like, if I don't answer, I'm in trouble, and if I do answer, I get in more trouble. So I'm really kind of lost for words for what to do. So I asked a group last night. I just said, I was with a group at Hope's Kitchen in North Myrtle Beach, and the Lord has opened a ministry for me to be able to be there once a month, to be able to share devotion. And in doing so, a lot of the people that come there for a meal, I've seen for years. Some just never have gotten out of that difficulty. They keep fighting in the world and what the world throws at them, and yet they just need to be reminded of the blessings that they truly have in their lives. I prayed with a man last night. His name was Gary, and it was the first time that I'd ever seen him. He came down here from Long Island, and he told me that he had just gotten out of the emergency room that day because of a sciatic nerve problem that he was having in his back. And I said, I asked him if I could pray for him. And then I started to ask questions of where he's from and how long he'd been here and things like that. And tell me about, is your family here? And he went down this list. And then the thing that triggered was, he said, "And I have 5 grandchildren." Oh, well, you have been truly blessed then. Because, see, the next generation is on its way. And when children come into our lives that way, for grandchildren, it's, you still can make an impact in people's lives. We can make an impact in others' lives at the age that we are, because there's a younger generation that's going to need to be encouraged by those of us that God has provided wisdom for and equipped us to be able to share what it's been like since the beginning. because the Word has never fallen away. It's always been here. It will always be here. The truth will never change.
Amen.
So I wanted to share with you something that I read in 1 John 3, beginning of verse 19 through 23. It says, "This is how we know that we belong to the truth, and how we set our hearts at rest in His presence. If our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts, and He knows everything." Dear friends, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence before God and receive from Him anything we ask, because we keep His commands and do what pleases Him. Just in being able to read that far in it, it's where our testimony makes such a difference. Because if you don't have that testimony on your lips of being able to say, you know what, through every battle, every circumstance, every season of life that was despair or pain or anguish, everyone that has ever let me down, every job that I ever lost, every dollar that I ever lost, any reasons things have come against me, people for no reason, they attack me for something I said, something I didn't say. There's a peace and a rest inside of us to understand that, you know what? In God's Word it says that He holds the whole world in His hands. He says in here just that same thing. If we're shaken, He knows everything. There's nothing hidden from Him. He knows what lies in dark places. In being able to share with that group yesterday, there's a verse from Daniel, and I've shared it here in the past. It's just so powerful. It says that I praise the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are His. He changes times and seasons. He places kings and removes them from the throne. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the scholars. He knows deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with Him. This is a story from chapter 2 of Daniel, when Daniel was getting ready to be killed because all of the people that were his attendants at that time couldn't interpret his dream. And Daniel went before his three friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and said, "Pray for me." Just as I can come into this place and easily be able to say, "Listen, guys, my daughter is getting married on Saturday. Pray for me." You guys can feel that. You can sense that. You know what that means. It's not just a selfish thing. It's, I could use your help. I know that you guys are faithful. I know that even though you've got burdens and extra loads that's going on, it's like, oh, do I need to put one more thing in my wheelbarrow? One more thing in my backpack? It's never enough to carry. Because all you're going to do is you're going to take that and say, Lord, lift up my friend Mark with what he's going through right now. You're going to pass that on to the one who can take care of it. See, the thing about as a believer, just as it's talking about in here, it says, and this is His command, to believe in the name of the Son, Jesus Christ, and to love one another as He has commanded us. See, His Word says, therefore, in Colossians 3, as God's chosen people, when you know I am one of His, as God's chosen people, clothe yourselves with compassion, with kindness, with gentleness, with humility, with patience. Forgive one another, bear with one another, and forgive one another, just as the Lord has forgiven you.
Amen.
And if any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive, just as the Lord has forgiven you. For above all of these virtues, is what it says. Above all of these virtues, compassion, kindness, gentleness, humility, patience, he says, put on love, for love binds them all together in perfect unity. See, it's a real weird thing that when, the years that I have been able to be a part of Hope's Kitchen, I have been able to be transparent in sharing a lot of my story, and people have been able to relate to it. And in seeing that, I've always lifted it. I've always given it to God, that He's the one that has been the one that stepped in to be able to take care of that. When you can get a hold of this truth where it says that if our hearts are condemned, we know that God is greater. You know that God is greater, and you know that He knows everything. But when you're at peace with God, you're going to be able to walk in a way that you're going to feel that rest and that confidence. You'll be able to walk without conviction of I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done that, or I should have done it. You're not going to have those that tossing of the wind. Day by day, that's all he calls for us to do, is to get up in the morning and to say, Lord, have your way with me today. I'm not quite sure what to do or how to do it. I remember, being at a meeting one time where somebody was, again, it's a regular thing, because I know that I was in that crowd raising my hand. Oh, I can't remember anything. I can't remember any verses. It's impossible. I barely remember names. I remember raising my hand to be able to do that until one of the verses that came, it was Hebrews 13:8, and it says, okay, so how am I going to remember this? How am I going to remember? Oh, okay, so like 13, it was like, okay, so 13. Okay, well, that's like an unlucky number. I think on 13, they kind of pull that number off of elevators. They don't even want you to you're not going to the 13th floor. You're going to go to the 12th floor and then the 14th floor. It's like they don't put 13 on it in a lot of the big high-rises. So I said, okay, so 13, let's say it's an unlucky number, we'll be able to do that. And then the 8, it's like how to do 8. Well, at the time I was really involved with NASCAR, and I was thinking, okay, well, that's Junior's. That's Dale Jr.'s number, is number 8. He's running around the track in number 8. And, you remember the 8 ball. We all used to have that 8 ball back when we all grew up, right? It was like shake that thing up and find out what that was all about, right? You think about the 8 ball. So it's like Hebrews 13:8, and it says, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. How simple is that?